G'day everybody and welcome to another episode of the Hidden City Roller Derby. I'm your host Simcof and I'm joined today by a menagerie of rollers and honorary rollers. And we've actually got the triumphant return of Toreadory. How's it going, Birdie?
Doing pretty well. I'm a little bit tired, but looking forward to it.
What you been up to lately? You killing it in the Discord League?
Actually, I did high roll. I managed to high roll two very good Phoenix players in Phoenix Mirrors, which was pretty nice. Including today, I got a turn one Palace plus Kanjo against Evan, the poor guy.
I hear that's pretty good. Is that Evan of San Francisco Kote fan?
Yeah, he was the Hadamoto from San Francisco. I think he made top 4 or top 8 there, yeah.
Alright, cool. Hey, Glenn, how's it going, man?
Not too bad. How's everyone going?
Good. So you're coming live from a freeway in the middle of nowhere?
Coming from rural Victoria, just living up to the Australian name. I've been in the bush.
You've been bush, bro. Been bush, mate.
Yeah, just been in Bright for a bit, and keen to be back at playing L5R.
You mean listening to Keith Urban and wrangling snakes in your spare time?
Nah, mate. Just been bush wandering, trying to find my deck to play. You know how it is.
Go and walk about.
Maybe if you've got to find all the missing lion cards out there in the bush somewhere, I think it'd have to be around.
I'm actually looking for the good crab cards, mate. To be honest, looking for the crab cards. Just looking for that Seeker of Earth deck that we all decided was great.
And we've got and that mystery voice you heard is the returning West Coast roller, Nathan. How are you, man?
Good. Good to be back, representing all the Notamotos out there.
Good, you do represent well. And finally rounding out the cast.
The audience, mate. That's what you do. Of the audience that listens to us.
We also have joining us Jay Christoph, who's a roller that has not yet debuted. This is his debut on Hidden City Roller Derby. He has been like the champion at a bazillion card games. Old school LCG, CCG player. How are you? You there?
Me?
You're cutting in and out.
Hear me?
Yeah, yes, we can hear you. No.
And he's gone. Right, that was a bit anticlimactic.
I was expecting a grand entrance.
Holy shit.
All right. Well, hopefully he can join us again soon.
He is a notoriously shy fella.
Oh, wait, hold on.
Maybe.
Back there, Jay? No? Hello? No.
I was gonna say maybe it's because we didn't say international, worldwide acclaimed author Jay Christoph as the lead-in.
That is very true.
I think he's going to try and reconnect.
He's going to disconnect and reconnect. Well, in the meantime, anyone been playing any cool L5R? We've got some interesting stuff to talk about today, but anything cool going on?
I've been playing a lot of failed L5R, like lots of super ridiculous, like Scorpion Earth decks and everything else with all the new stuff now that it's all done and dusted with the Arc and everything. And none of them are going very well, so I won't inflict my experience on everybody. Needless to say that when you try to run Shuggies, Bushi, Courtiers, and Shinobi, things don't maybe go so well.
It's a lot of moving parts. Well, why don't we actually
there's Master of the Elements. There's also Master of the Keywords. That's remade.
That's it. We've got to find the elusive fifth.
All right. Well, why don't we actually start off with just talking about, we've got Pack 6 is well and truly out now. We've got new roles. We've had a week and a half or 2 weeks to kind of get used to things. I've asked the guys to kind of think about a deck that they believe works in the new environment. Glenn, did you maybe want to share yours first and walk through it?
Yeah, sure. So
hold on. Hey, Jay.
Welcome.
Welcome back, man.
Sorry, technical issues.
That's all right. Say hello to the listeners for us. I gave you a very flattering intro.
I'm sure. Everyone, thanks for having me. It's nice to be here.
No worries.
Jay, yeah. We just wanted to know about your salty level right now. What's your saltiness level at?
level is good. It's Simcoe that was salty at me.
Yeah,
I
right.
was.
That's all right.
Well, in a moment, you can talk
Or
about
D&D.
the saltworthy deck.
I can't wait to hear about this
Okay.
night of
Cause of
testing.
assault. It was 3 games. His blood pressure went up pretty high by the end of it. But then we went and played D&D afterwards, so he calmed right down.
Felt good. All right, so Glenn, you were digging into which deck?
I was just going to discuss the Keeper of Earth Scorpion deck. Basically, it's what the role that Crab had, but Scorpion does it better, where you can just decide to run Spyglasses and Talisman out of Scorpion. It enables really filthy combos, like you can dishonor their tower, move them into Abandoning Honor, the province that eliminates the tower because they're dishonored. And yeah, you just get a lot of mileage out of being able to bid low and draw big because you have Spyglass now at your fingertips, while also being able to run the filthy backhanded compliments. And so you just offer some really enriching, fulfilling experiences for both you and your opponent, where they're on where you've played half a game and they're on 3 honor, and you just backhanded them 3 times out of hand. So it can offer some really strong synergies in that way. But I have been losing a lot with the deck also, because what I've realized is that when you have someone like me playing Scorpion, you're never going to get that far with it. So I hope there's some capable listeners out there that can take it a bit further than I can.
All right, so the big question is, Discourage Pursuit, how many potatoes? Is it a good card?
Yeah, so, you know, if you're a Lion player or you're a Crab player, you want to play some fair L5R, you put your 3 bonsais in your deck and you play it. Just watch out, because Scorpion's going to negate that. And the beauty of it is, when you play that new 2-coster, your 2-coster becomes a 4/4. So that's that's a 7-stat swing in a military conflict.
Do you know what I love most about this?
There's some beautiful synergies out there, and I think it really brings Scorpion back to the tier 0 that they were missing for a while, where you thought they could do it at a tournament, but you just needed this Keeper of Earth role to really push them over the edge.
Do you know what I love about this story? Is that Glenn simultaneously believes this deck is disgustingly overpowered and NPE, and yet he can't win with it either.
Yeah.
Mate, in any card game, there's either the deck or the pilot. And in this case, look, it's probably both, but we're going to blame the pilot for now, because I really want this deck to take off.
I think the Scorp Keeper of Earth probably has legs. I don't know if Unicorn Splash is the one I'd choose, but yeah, I think that deck could be good.
But mate, you're looking at it from a competitive analysis. I'm looking at it from, well, I can now play Talisman, so how to make it work? You know what I mean? Like, I get narrowed in on the one card rather than thinking about the proper competitive meta that's out there and tailoring it to that. You're probably right.
Why don't you just play triple Watch Commander and triple Reprieve like any normal human being?
Because you
can't. I think that's pretty good.
Because I can't bid. You can't bid high on that deck. You can't draw enough of your cards and dishonor them out, all in the same motion. You know what I mean? It's why Spyglass, I thought, was a good answer. I will say though, I think critically, and this is honestly about Keeper of Earth Scorp in general, missing the Seeker Fate really makes it hard to fit in a lot more of the expensive events that Scorpion were running in the past. And so I think there needs to be a way for players to learn how to play with just that little bit less fate. And that's an honest critical analysis of that.
Do you think
that's what your reprieves are for, right? That's what your reprieves are for. You're getting longevity out of your characters. So like you bang a Watch Commander on Heartless Intimidator and a couple of fate on him, and all of a sudden he's milling you.
Oh, are we talking about the mill deck now? Well, that's a different deck, Jay. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought the mill deck up.
Can we not have another 10-minute Heartless Intimidator rant? Like we did that about 3 episodes ago.
Did we? Well, I built a deck for my friend, and he reports that he's had more people concede to him in the space of that card being out than at any other time. And I said, well, if you get 2 of them out turn 1 and you're milling two cards per dishonor, it's not really fun to play against. Mill's never fun. Mill in any game is never fun to play against. Because you're losing all your good cards, which is a shame.
Do you think that lack of Seeker Fate means you kind of have to be even more conservative in your dynasty buys? Like passing Fate then becomes so much more important.
Well, I think you go the high, the really tier 0 competitive play of just seeing your hidden Moon Dojo turn 1, and then you're good because you've got your Fate engine set up and you've got your limit 1 per deck set up, and so you're all good on that front.
I've never seen anyone play that card because it's just an insta turn 1 scoop, isn't it? When your opponent gets it.
Yeah.
Well, you have to ask Jay about that because Jay is experienced. The scoop or no scoop.
Instantly scooping.
Yeah.
The scoop or no scoop question is a Jay Christoph special.
I mean, if they flop that on a Central Province turn 1, then you play it through. But if you're playing with friends, then fuck it, just start again.
Man, I just remember I got that pack. I was so happy. Flipped Hidden Moon Dojo. I was so excited to play that card ever since I saw it spoiled. First turn, flip it in the middle, and then just on the edge, I got an Imperial Palace just to taste. And you just scooped. You didn't let me play.
You had the Palace as well.
It was a fair balance.
So sick.
I think that was the first time it was actually in his deck. It was just like Godfall. Like Palace on the edge and Dojo in the middle. I'm like, yeah, all right, let's play another game. Let's play a real game.
I chalk that down to a highly skillful win.
L5R is known for its very tactical and thoughtful lines of play, and it's a game renowned for very few swings and very few blowout potential turns. And we hope that the game continues that manner.
All right. So, Jay, you're going to talk about some really lovely deck.
I think we've coined it Crane NPE. Crane negative play experience, and it basically stops your opponent playing the deck between a combo of Voice of Honor and hopefully Guest of Honor with 3 or 4 Fate Honor, VOH turned on at all times with new cards like Spell Beyond Reproach and Game of Sedana. You're basically looking at an opponent with 8 cards in their hand and maybe one of them that they can actually play. It came over my house yesterday. I think we played 4 games.
Yeah.
I did do a turn 1 scoop on one of those games where he got Fate Worse Than Death. First turn I didn't have a VOH in hand, but the other 3 games, by the end of them, Simcoe was deep in the salt mines, bitterly complaining about the negative play experience.
I think the worst thing is, is I'm playing Meek Informant to see my fate. So, I feel like I'm giving him a little bit of MPE by, being able to discover his game plan. But then I see his game plan, I'm like, oh, all right, well, I guess I got no response.
Look into my hand and see 2 policy debates and a Fate Worse Than Death and just never declares an attack.
When I was
playing
against Rob at the last tournament, I did a draw phase 3 Fate, Mark of Shamans and Knobsack. That felt pretty fucking good. Mark of Shame's a good card, eh?
So, actually, here's a good question, Jay, because you've been playing a little bit of Crane now. Magistrate Station is on the Troll 5R, that highly skilled podcast that thinks very highly of itself. They reckon Magistrate Station's pretty crappy because all it really does is means that you can defend a province and then stand your guy. It doesn't really do anything. What's your contrasting, or do you agree with their assessment?
No, it's absolute nonsense. Magistrate Station is busted. It's busted. It's fundamentally changed the way people play against Crane. You can't poke first turn. You can't just send in Envoy with 1 military just to see what's there. Because if you run into Magistrate Station, you've just turned it on, and they will put it in you for the rest of the game with it. So,
do you want to give a little bit of a PSA to fellow Crane players out there about when you're allowed to actually use the Magistrate Station action?
Whenever you choose. Simcoe has a real problem with this concept. I think he's asked me that question about 12 times now. 5 times in the one game. Can you read out that action again? When can you do that action? Is it in the middle of a conflict? Oh no, it's just whenever you want to do it. Right. And then 3 minutes later, how does that action work? When can you do that action?
Yep.
Here and saltier every time he asks. Yeah, it's a pretty good card. I rate it.
If you're going to run it, you'll feel pain one way or the other. If it's repetition and questioning, then so be it.
Yeah.
I mean, like all you have to do is defend. Like you throw if they poke and run into it, then you fine, you leave it go. If they have a chance of breaking it, then you defend with everything you have, and then you essentially have an extra conflict character pretty much every conflict phase because you're going to have someone who's honored and it on with. It's an incredible card.
Cool. All right. Well,
Have you tried the
keeper?
keeper? Have you tried the keeper roll with it with talisman, or is it not worth it?
I have not. I haven't tried it yet. No, I've been too enamored of old school Seeker style, the NPE experience.
I think all the fate feels really good, right?
Right. I mean, the thing is that in terms of Dynasty side, the deck hasn't changed that much. Like Crane got one good character this arc, in my opinion, which is he's the little courtier that could. Everyone else they got is pretty much unusable, but the conflict side changed dramatically.
The Calo delegate.
It's huge.
Aren't you running
It's huge.
your parrot sensei or whatever it is? With his
Ingu? No,
offensive
he's too expensive, man. Too expensive.
It feels good against Dragon. But I mean,
The other 2/5 costers are just better.
okay. What do you think about like telling Sumiko that you can never attack and you're not going to defend the first conflict?
But the truth is, any of your 5 costers against Dragon are going to get hit with Cloud. So you've got to look at the stat block and who's just going to be a better beat stick when they're honored.
Yeah, Hitaru.
Both the other 5 costers are better stat blocked.
That's a good point. All right. So Nathan, you were going to talk to us about some fiery birds.
Well, yeah, I've been running quite a bit of the new role Phoenix with the Seeker of Air, which is super neat. But I've unlocked, I think, the secret to Phoenix decks, and that is to run no Shuggies whatsoever. so Shuggies are for chumps. I've decided with Phoenix, and they run really well. And you splash your Crane, you get your Solby on Reproach, and your Shiba Cocoon, so they're storming around all big, and you can just sit there all passive and not really have to engage in the game. You run as much waning hostilities as possible so that you can sort of minimize the actual play that has to take place while you slowly trickle up on her, and the victory just comes to you. You don't actually have to do anything.
Sorry, are you playing Solitaire? Are you playing Solitaire or are you playing L5R?
It's Philosopher Phoenix is what I've dubbed it. So you sit there, you mostly just think about playing, and then and the cards do the work for you. Your opponent's their job to overcome what I have, not the other way around.
It sounds like you're just reflecting on how game design works, mate. Where it's like this is a 2-player game on the box. It says 2-player game. And you fundamentally going, what is 2 players? What is?
I think I misread that as up to 2 players. So no, but look, it works like they've got they've got their new region and everything where you can you've got a built-in sabotage. It's solid. I lie. I run one Shuggy who's the combo courtier Shuggy, and so you're sort of forced into it. The one that honors people. What's her name? Yeah. Suki. That's the one. But no, it's a good deck. It's easy. You splash Crane, Solby on Approach, and you've got your cancels. A bit of card draw, test of skill. If you're
are you running Chrysanthemum in there?
No, I don't. I've had bad experiences with the way the Chrysanthemum. Because that's the negative experience card. That's the token bad card. There was a game I played actually against another local here, Andrew, where I got to the end of it was a big game, went for ages, went like 6 or 7 rounds, and then I'm just going, I'm sick of this fucking card, and I threw it on the table. I went, way the Chrysanthemum, put it in my hands. It's turn 1, and I haven't been able to use it. And he flipped over the last card in his hand as well, and it was way the Chrysanthemum. He'd had it since turn 1 in the game. So it's basically just a 2-fate dead weight piece of junk that no one can ever play. It's awful.
Right. Cool.
Do not rate.
Okay. So, one of the things I wanted to talk about, we've kind of been chatting a little bit around alternate sort of tournament formats, and I wanted to look at other games and what they do and what could potentially be brought in to add to the competitive element of L5R. And one of the things that I tend to admire, and I think a few others on this call might admire, is the idea that to be a great player, it's kind of like Frotop's trying to do in the whole Pokemon become a Hatamoto of each clan, but it's the idea that not only do you need depth and be able to choose a deck and master it, you must be able to master many decks and many clans and playstyles. The best players have broad and deep skills. So I was thinking about like Dota 2 or Dota and League of Legends and those games that do pick and ban. And I was thinking like, if you got a team tournament, maybe you've got like 3 people. Imagine that like you got 3 people and each team brings 7 decks, one of each clan, and you kind of, I don't know, like, is anyone here like a Dota or LoL expert and kind of walk through what a pick and ban phase might look like?
I think they've changed it over the years, but I think it was like the first team bans 1, the second team bans 2, then the first team bans 2, then the second team bans 1, then the first team bans 1. Something like that. So
you can adapt the numbers, so it's like...
There's 5 characters that get banned across the ban phase, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something like that.
So you could adapt
it. But I mean, I guess
in Dota 2,
to choose from,
you each ban 3, and then you take turns picking, and there's a second ban phase where you ban another.
Oh, there you go.
1 or 2.
Yeah, it must have changed.
So you can kind of adapt to that, right? Where like each team gets an opportunity to ban a clan. So say like, you know, you're playing against, you know, people who are notoriously good at certain clans. You ban that clan out. Say we decide to ban out Scorpion. So that means neither team can use Scorpion. Then, you know, the opponent then gets to pick a deck they play. But the idea is that like you get to, as a team, you'll bring in 7 decks, and then over the course of the rounds, you're going to play a bunch of these different decks, and you're going to get a bunch of different matchups. And it's less like, well, there's 2 or 3 decks which are the top of the meta, so I'm bringing one of those 3 to my big tournaments, and that's it. What do you guys think about?
Hearthstone had a similar model, didn't they? Like you had to bring 3, you had to bring 4 decks, like 4 different character-based decks, and your opponent could ban 1 of the characters. So like you couldn't play your Warlock deck or whatever.
Yeah, and then you play RNG Fiesta for the next 90 minutes. And if you win most consistently, you get some cash. It's a pretty good deal. I was also going to say, Ben, isn't there? So there's the format already called Solitaire, which Nathan's introduced us to. Yeah. And then there also is the Mind's Desire approach, where you just become good at one deck, and then you win every big tournament in your country. So I think the idea of playing 3 decks seems really interesting. And you're talking about having breadth of decks. I was just wondering if Keyforge appealed to you, mate, as a new game rather than a format in L5R. But also, more seriously, what about if you did what you're suggesting, but rather than draft out each other's decks, you build the shittiest decks possible for each clan, and then you give them to your opponent, and the winner is whoever loses with their deck. So you're basically trying to find the worst decks in the format, and you go, well, I bet that my deck is worse than your deck, so you're going to play my deck.
Reverse fight.
But in all seriousness, I think that's a great idea. I think anything that promotes team events, we saw in our proving grounds the night before the Kotai, or the team event that we ran before our Kotai in Melbourne, that the team event not only offered a way to introduce people to each other who may not have met from around the country, but it also allowed for a very relaxed, very enjoyable tournament where you could just have fun seeing new interactions and work together as a team. And so I think anything that promotes a team format is a really great idea for the game. And I really hope we push that here in Melbourne at least. Just because I've got a feeling that while Season 2 and the Scorpion OP kits are going to come out, there's going to be a little bit of a gap, I feel, where we could fill in the space with that sort of event.
That team's tournament, that was called the Grand Alliance before our Kotai. That was a lot of fun. Although I still can't believe that I chose to play the same deck in both nights after having almost lost to a 10-year-old boy on that Friday night.
He's a good player.
Ben does look older.
He was a good player.
Yeah. 10-year-old.
I like the idea. I was always such a fan of the drafting phase of Dota matches. And like a lot of the top teams in the world their success rides on their drafter being good, and like drafters are headhunted by teams now. You know, like people who are very, very skilled at picking up lineups, and so like you can't apply that. You can't totally transpose the idea because there are 115 heroes or whatever in that game. But I do like the idea of encouraging a generalized L5R skill set as a virtue in the game, because I think I'm most impressed with players who can do well with a lot of decks.
I think what you could do is have all seven province, like all the boxes out, all the strongholds out, and then you draft the strongholds, like between all six players. Because then you've got to make very careful considerations, not only for your skill in each stronghold, but also your skill in terms of like the matchups. So if they pick Scorpion, you've got to be able to counter draft it to a certain extent and so forth. I don't know. There's lots of ideas to push.
Kind of what FFG are kind of doing at the moment, though, with their role locking. They just lock everybody down. So you'd have, not only do you have to pick your role and all those cards are excluded that you can't have otherwise, and you have to pick your splash, so all the other cards out of your splash you can't have. Then somebody has to lock your deck out as well, and you can't play those either. So really everybody would have, what, six cards they get to try and play the game with at that point?
Start adding cards to the restricted list? No. Okay. All right. Well, I might have a crack at...
As your like baseline, that's all.
Yeah, no, this sounds like a really cool idea. I'm alright, something. I like the idea that like maybe the two captains of the team flip a coin, and then whoever wins gets a choice. They can either get the first ban or they get to first draft. So basically, as a consolation, if the other team gets to pick first, you get to at least go. All right, well, this is the ban. This is because there's 6 clans going to be picked, so this is the clan that's banned for the round. I don't know. Anyway,
another cool thing you could do is... Go ahead.
So I think it's a really good idea. I think, the reason why other games have introduced that kind of format is to stop the meta growing stale. If one particular archetype grows too strong, it becomes an auto ban. Actually is forced to adapt because the strongest archetype is forced out of the game. And I think we're at a point now in terms of card pool, or we're getting very close to a point in terms of card pool where every clan has a viable 1.5 strat, whereas before, this cycle, if you got lumped with Unicorn, you would be boned. But everyone's getting to the point now where they can field something competitive. So yeah, I think it's a cool idea.
I was just going to add, you think you could add in one of the teams gets to pick which players play off, and you draft like the matchups as well. So like if you get first pick, your opponent gets to choose which player deck or something. That could be cool.
Yeah, I like it. All right. So, before we get into listener questions, there were some new cards that dropped today, and rather than doing, we'll just do like a quick walk through them, and let's see if there's any thoughts that we have that are beyond that card looks cool. Okay. So the first one I want to talk about is called Brothers Gift Dojo, which is... It's a province and action during a conflict. Lose 1 honor, choose a participating character you control, move that character home, limit twice per round. I really like this guy. Has anyone got any major thoughts on that one?
It's void, so it's got a lot of stiff competition.
Yeah, for sure.
Like really stiff. Like shameful, obviously, but even the other two, even like Pilgrimage is great. I often run that. Over shameful because that's how I don't win. But to run that instead for something that's going to automatically lose you honor, I don't know. I'm not sure I could do it. I mean, it does. You can use it outside of its own conflict, which is pretty good, just like the Magistrate Station. But
I think this would have to be a very specific deck. It would have to be a very, very specific deck archetype because it has to be flipped face up. So they have to have attacked it already. You have to then defend it successfully. And then it's also it's like you're never playing it in the keeper deck, right? It has to be Seeker of Void because playing this over Shameful is just suicide. And then like, is it better than Pilgrimage? I think it's it depends, man. It depends on how strong is moving a character home and how important is losing an honor on tap for the new Scorp deck.
Okay, so this is my thoughts, right? Is I like the idea you play 3 ambush, 3 charge, 3 from the shadows, all of the shinobi, and you've got characters flying out of your hand and your provinces left, right, and center, just flying onto the board, and then you can move them back with that, plus maybe 1 or 2, smoke and mirrors, etc. And you've got the new Shiziro Takeo, who lets you move home as well. So you've just got the idea where you can over-defend, and then you move your guys home, and then over-attack and move your guys home. So I think it encourages that sort of characters flying in from everywhere for free or cheap, like cheating characters, and then getting the most use each turn out of the characters you've cheated. So it's a very aggressive deck, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, but what would you have in place of those cards? Like, instead of Smoke and Mirrors, what would have been in your hand? Instead of going, I'm not really winning this conflict, I might bow out, or I'm overcommitted. Yeah, it could be katana. Any number of other millions of things. Yeah,
but
it's...
Yeah, and I mean, From the Shadows, which is the new one, which is if you're less honorable than your opponent, action during a conflict, put a shinobi character into play from your hand or provinces in the conflict. That character into play is dishonored. Like, it's a free sort of charge, but you can also get it from your hand. Like, seems...
Card is fucking awesome. I reckon that card's great.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I just think
that
it's not a dead card, brothers of Give Dojo.
The fact that it's free and dishonor and you really care very little about, I think is really good. And there's plenty of cards that even if they have no fate on, you can get plenty of value out. Like even the actress, like to drop her for 0 and get 2 functional conflicts out of her in a turn is pretty solid.
That's pretty.
Well, I mean, you're going to get 3. Doesn't the new box unbow or straighten a dishonored character?
Yeah,
true that.
Play into the conflict, then you straighten them with your box, and then you blow her up to pull someone else into another conflict. Like, that's pretty good.
That's pretty economical for 0.
Conflicts for free.
Yeah, that's
From the Shadows has got great artwork too. It reminds me a bit of Curse of the Golden Flower, the Zhang Yimou movie. Looks awesome.
Yeah.
Reminds me of Tenchu. Did you guys ever play Tenchu?
Yes, Ninja. And yeah, that was a fucking great game.
That was
same deal.
Yeah. So
PlayStation 1.
Yeah, I won't say that. Liar's Mask.
So just 2 things on that.
Yeah.
So firstly, I think if Hokuteru is not going to get errated anytime soon, I actually think all these move home abilities are actually quite strong. Just because that card is just so prevalent right now, that any card that's going to allow you to move home actually does have a place in the meta right now. And secondly, this is just me not knowing the game well enough. But does put into play mean I can put a fate on it, like pay for a fate, or okay? What's the terminology where it does allow me to put into play?
Play.
Okay, great.
So you know
thank you. That was my question.
The other advantage of From the Shadows, because it's put a shinobi character into play, is you're not. Oh, actually. So I guess you're playing From the Shadows from your hand, so Watch Commander could trigger off From the Shadows, but it's not going to trigger off the shinobi that you put into play. It's kind of weird interaction. Liar's Mask, there's two last cards. Liar's Mask, which is a +1/+1 item that costs 1 fate. It's another mask. It's got the mask trait. You can only play it if you got 6 or for your honor. Action, discard a status token from attached character. And it has a cool little quote, which is, "The face is the first traitor," from Bayushi's Lies. Thoughts?
The art is horrible, first and foremost. It's like a little mosquito mask. I don't like it.
It looks like from the reject shop or something, the mask. Sorry to the art.
It does. It's like a budget party mask.
I think the guy looks fine, but it does look like it was painted on afterwards. It's like a party supplies...
Yeah, it's like from a really poor man's LARP. It's shocking. No, the card's good. You could run that comfortably. You can get buffs off it. You can get rid of your dishonor. You can get rid of opponent's honored status. Does all kinds of things. It's fine.
I think it balances out Crane. Like if Crane is really going to get quite strong with all its like if they're honored or if everyone's going to abuse the Mark of Shame combo. I think these sort of cards, along with Perfect Land Ethos, just help even the playing field where otherwise you wouldn't have an answer.
It's
How much influence is it,
one.
by the
I
way?
was just about to say it's one influence.
Can I-
So,
Yeah, it's really strong.
I'd probably point out first of all that card is built 100% for Aramuro when he comes out, who dishonors himself to murder people, and then that every turn obviously just triggers and fixes him right up, which
Yeah,
is
that's a
pretty
good point.
solid.
Yeah.
So-
So the one other card that we didn't talk about was the Alibi Artist, which is a 1-cost courtier shinobi. So both the cool traits, 1 glory, dash military. So Ratsugu can suck it, and 2 political. Action if you have 6. Yeah, it is. Action if you have 6 off your honor. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck. Put one of them in your hand and the other on the bottom of your deck. So it's like a shrewd Yusuke effect that only works if you have 6 off your honor, but does cost 1 less, and you've got some relevant traits.
I struggle with all those 6 or fewer cards. Like,
Yeah, I'm just wondering. Keaton Bayushi also requires that they be. Oh no, if it's 6 or lower, they get +1/+1, right?
yeah.
There's quite a few of those.
And that's a
Starts at-
dangerous position to be in at 6 or lower in Scorpion without the old box being able to keep you afloat. I'm a little concerned as well.
I mean, you get duty as well, I guess, like to try and mitigate that. I think that's kind of the point. But yeah, I don't know. So, like as the game goes on, you get more and more cards. Like 6 to 0 is going to be a really quick trip in some games. Like that's not going to take much at all.
And against in the mirror versus the old box, you're going to be screwed, right? Like you just can't win. You can't win against the old box.
Well, it depends how strong all these 6 or less cards are, though. Like if they're all just a bit above the curve, like it'd be fine. Like you might do okay, and I think you've got plenty of cards to make sure you don't have dishonored people around. Maybe that's the point. You know, there's other than the airing that largely gets ignored, except for like a fate battery.
Yeah,
I love the whole
lose a whole
theme,
bunch
right?
more.
Like jumpers, ninjas, shinobi. It's what I wished the core set sculpt was.
yeah.
And it's what I loved in the old game, in old L5R, was this idea that you could jump people into battles and ambush and stuff. And I hope it's strong enough to contend with the old archetype, because it's got to be an aggro deck, right? Like
Yeah.
you're out there to break provinces.
Well, I honestly think all of these cards that are 6 or 4, they're better off running out of the old Scorpion box, not the new one. So, but sitting at 6 is a lot easier when you can tap your opponent for 1 every turn and just sort of maintain that level. Whereas the straighten, I think, is really good for big fat characters that want to straighten and go again. Like if you're running Shoju in an aggressive deck.
Yeah. So
think
Opie and
he's
Western. Yeah, sorry.
any kind of competition for Bushy Liar. Like he's same cost. He has 1 glory as opposed to 0. He has 2 political as opposed to 3. And Liar draws you a card when it leaves play anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
You'd
it's not
you'd
going to
run
replace Lair.
More than 1 fate.
He's competing for the court novice Bushi manipulator spot, which is very competitive.
This guy's blank turn 1 because you're not going to be lower than 6, and he also you're paying the tax for the shinobi trade, I guess.
So
like,
one
it depends on how many
assassinate-
good cards.
One
One
assassinate,
assassinate, yeah.
because you start with 9 honor, right? On Koyuden Bushi.
Yeah.
So a single assassinate gets you to 6.
I think blackmail as well, right?
That only
Like, you can run-
assassinate you're probably going to play on turn 1. Because you probably can't afford to play.
Yeah, if you're running the new box, you can only play one of those cards. Like you can't play Bring the Darkness. And
I don't know, because combo with loyalty. I don't know. Yeah, you're probably right. So there's another weird card. Like it's got an effect that is unique. Like it's the first time we've seen this sort of effect. The Opium Westrel. So it's a 1/1 peasant conflict character. Play only if you're less honorable than your opponent. So it's after this character enters play, choose a participating character. That character's glory is set to 0 until the end of the conflict.
That play only if you're less honorable is completely unnecessary. Like I don't know why they always put these like extra text on cards just to make sure it's almost entirely non-playable.
yeah, I'm shocked it's not a lion card with that fucking text.
They are known for their opium habits.
No, I don't know. I like the idea. It seems okay. I think it's very hard. I mean, at first glance, when we don't really know the whole set, it seems like very, very hard to get into a deck. But it still does seem fun at like reducing somebody's glory to 0 because there's outrageous things that happen there. And if a lot of your guys are dishonored, you know, and like Yanako and a few of the other characters that might make it into the new box kind of have that 2 glory. So sometimes it's good to set your own character to 0, and then alternatively, you know, an Honored Serene Warrior sounds like a good...
I suppose what we don't know, though, is whether he's not... do we know if he's into the conflict or into the turn? Or into the...
It just says...
It doesn't say on the...
You can't see
I think
it.
it's probably conflict.
So if it was just one conflict, then it has a couple of uses, but if it's not, if it's the end of the phase, then you can sort of drop him and use him to poke a box somewhere, and he's probably more playable at that point. Like, you can just get rid of, you know, some giant characters +3/+3 or Sukun's 4, whatever else, or, you know, get rid of Kachiko's crippling, and you can just, you know, poke a box either side. So he's slightly more useful than the other peasant.
The big problem with this card is the times in games where he's going to be a dead card in your hand, and presumably, like turn 2 or beyond, you're going to be bidding low because you're going to have no honor, and you're going to knock a 1 for a 1/1 conflict character because those guys have proven to just be some of the best characters in the game time and time again. But yeah, I think like his reaction at best is going to give you like a 2 stat pump in a conflict usually.
What's his influence count? Sorry.
Can't see.
Can't see.
Is he a conflict character?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's conflict.
Okay, so like the line of play I see is the Haughty Magistrate from Phoenix. It just gives you another way to deny, to get a break
So
without
Scott
actually
splashing Phoenix.
pumping. Yeah, because you can
Phoenix splashing Scott.
you literally, if they block with one person, you can make them 0 glory, and it's like you don't have to pump your box. Get there.
It's a good thing that's not a niche case. That's such a
I don't know, dude. Like that Haughty, like if you don't cloud that Haughty Magistrate, there's many games where you'll just get blown out because you can't interact with a character that blanks all your characters because you've got more glory than them. Do you know what I mean? And there's a good counter to that as well, where you can
isn't that the
lower his
problem?
glory.
Isn't the problem with those decks that hinge on one particular character, cards like Cloud the Mind? Like in a big tournament, if you play a Haughty Magistrate deck and your whole deck relies on getting that guy to crush provinces, like you're going to run into someone who's running Cloud the Mind and 5/5.
But mate, I'm just saying about it's fun decks, right? It's like,
It's a fun
deck.
deck.
It allows those decks to actually have a place where you can take it to your local game night and not lose 3 games in a row. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
I think I could see this Opium Wastrel. I could see being run in like the current Scorpion far more than the new Shinobi version. So, like old.
I don't think he's going to take a spot from,
courtiers.
like Meek Informant though. Like the conflict character slots in that deck at the moment are jam packed. Who are you going to take out for this guy?
I think peasant on peasant is like
true
Meek
that.
Informant's definitely the superior peasant as well.
You could combo it with the Shadow Shaper, so you get some reuse out of the Opium Smuggler guy.
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
Actually, that's interesting. So because if you could use it twice in a single conflict, that could make a swing, a decent swing. But yeah. Mm-hmm. All right. Well,
I think you hit it there though, Ben, with the From the Shadows plus charge plus ambush plus Hidden Moon Dojo. That's going to be a lot of like surprise skill that your opponent isn't going to have time to account for. It's going to be a lot more consistent than just like Charge Bird used to be. I think it's going to be pretty strong.
So I guess it's the idea that you're playing a very disruptive deck that looks very weak on the board, but it's got all this sort of different little effects coming. It does mean that it's probably going to be tougher and tougher in that style of deck to play a Fate Worse Than Death. It's an amazing card that we just all seem to run 3 of, but I think more and more that's going to be tough.
I agree.
But also
different style of deck.
Also, drawing 5 will be an issue for that deck.
Yeah.
Because how do you draw? How do you keep low on honor? How do you keep less honorable than your opponent and draw high while playing within a safe margin?
So I think what you might hit on here, though, sir, is that potentially Good Omen. I'm always like vouching for that card. I always feel one day it'll have a spot in the deck. All right. So, there are a few questions from some
No,
listeners.
there's one more. Sorry,
Yeah.
mate. There's one more card that I think you missed. There's a unique character that they spoiled. I can't remember his name, but he's in the
Oh,
article.
Takeo.
Takeo.
Sure,
We very briefly touched on him. So let's have a look at him. So Takeo is a 3-1, 3 military, 1 political, 0 glory, which is a good thing. 2 Costa. Unique is a dynasty character. Bushi, Shadow, Shinobi, which is all of the traits that you want in a Shinobi. Action.
All the shadow cards.
Yeah. Action. While a Dishonor character is participating in a conflict, move this character into or out of that conflict. So you can, he's got some hawk
Holy
tag
fuck,
resilience.
dude! This guy's amazing.
Yeah.
I think he's
2
great.
cost. He's 3
I like his-
military 2 cost, which is
He's well statted.
it's hard to
I
get
would-
that military. In
Man, I would
score.
suck a certain lead designer's appendage to get a 3 skill for 2 in Lion. So
You got a 1
shout
skill.
out to Nate
You got
French.
a 3 skill for 1 in line, man.
Mate,
Yeah,
they've probably
everyone
got,
has that. Everyone has that.
But all your
No, they
line
don't.
guys have got a
What are you
glory,
talking
and 1 or 2 points of glory makes up for those extra stats.
Yeah, glory's a really good stat to have on your characters. You always want to have maximum glory.
I know
Mate,
a
do you
lot
know
of
what
Great
Crab
players
ability,
got?
run-
great
You know what
stat
Crab
line.
did, Michael? Crab has got a 0-0 scout, and they've got a 1-1-1. Mate, so you and your whinging about not having 3 on a 2 coster when you got a 3 strength on a 1 coster. I think you need to go. You need to go walkabout with me and find your lion
Come
card
to crap now.
because I'm trying to find my. I'm really trying to find my crab cards, mate.
Well, don't you guys think it's bullshit that Scorpion have the only 4-drop in the game with 5 military skill?
They don't
And-
yet.
Well, it's coming. And Aramoro. And Lion's biggest skilled 4-drop is 3.
Hey, but don't
The
you know
beast
that
is
Scorpions
fucking
are
honor
super
general.
cool?
But how much
It was-
glory has it got? Like,
Fucking glory, man.
And you've also got 7th Matsu Legion, mate. So you're all good
Yeah.
on the military front.
Do you know
all my
what glory is
courtiers
like?
shut down.
Do you know what glory is like? Glory is like going and buying a brand new car and having the car salesman swindle you into buying all of the add-ons that cost you an extra few $1,000s, and really the car drives the exact same. That's what glory is like.
Except you also get the favor, though. You get the favor every turn. It's a seller.
Yeah.
It's clearly a win.
Yeah. Right. So we'll move on then. We've had enough salt. So a few more than a couple. We got a bunch of response. We'll get to a few today of questions. So Ray Dent asks, now that the full elemental cycle is out and we've had time to test all of the goodies, what do the rollers think the restricted list will look like by the end of the year? So I guess, yeah. I don't know.
This is a great question.
I initially saw real life for RL. I thought impressive.
I'll be on the streets out of a job. It's going to be horrible.
That opium habit.
So, I feel like there's one addition that we're likely to have. Anyone got a guess? What we think?
Hawk. Yeah. I feel like a bunch of stuff's got to come off the list as well. Like heaps of it. I don't think it's that big of a deal. There's so many cards now that people can choose from. But even stuff like policy debate that was sort of auto include for like everything before.
I never want that to come off.
Are you
Fuck
honestly
that.
advocating for that card to come off the restricted list?
Do you
It
not?
should be upgraded to banned.
That card should not exist
Big
in
deal.
the first place. It should be banned.
Nah, it's not that good.
Cards in the game.
That's a classic.
And I
John
play
Emoto
the
quote.
fucking thing.
No, look, it's fine. I don't think it's as broken as people think it is. Like the scouting is great, but every single deck these days can run upholding where teams are going to get a break on it, look at the deck and get the same effect, only powerful. I mean, and don't get me wrong, that's really good. It's still a good card, but it's not super game breaking. Like you get a bit of a scout if you win. I don't
Scout.
see the drama.
Jesus Christ. You are the reason why cards like this exist. Same attitude in the design team. It's like, we'll let them look at their opponent's hand and take their best card away from them in the middle So the card
But
that
it's
they
a-
were going to use to win that
but it's a
conflict
duel.
is now in their discard pile.
But it's a duel, though. You could turn the tables.
What are you gonna do when it's an honored Hataru dueling your Kaiju envoy? What does the Kaiju envoy have to say about the state of, the peasantry as opposed to the nobility in
Feel like you
Rokugani?
need to learn to play to be.
I think that
Real thoughts?
we discussed it a bit on a previous cast, but the fact that a card like Game of Sedane, the losing effects basically hit the losing character rather than the player makes it a lot more fair. Whereas like Policy Debate, like you said, you can duel a Mawaku Kabe guard with Hitaru on policies, and it's not really fair, right? Like
Policy Debate's free, right? Like I feel
Policy
like
Debate costs no fate. Game of Sedane costs a fate. Policy Debate is free. It's madness.
so if
It's
Policy
the worst
Debate
card in the game.
was not on the restricted list because 2 Fate would it be playable?
Yes.
two
absolutely.
fates, probably
You
too
wouldn't.
much.
I don't think you'd play it.
No, not for two.
Like you still the end result. I mean, the scout. I think is the primary win there. Like dropping a card is fine. But you've lost a card as well. You could have had something else. Just seeing what your opponent has is really valuable. But there's plenty of other stuff now that does that though. Like anyone can splash for the little sneaky peasant.
Not mid conflict.
So back to
Away their best card mid conflict.
Yeah,
back to
true.
Ray's question.
Yeah.
Like I feel
Wait, there was
Policy
a question.
Wait, no. Okay, policy debate's been discussed like too many times.
All right.
I think Ray's question is trying to think about like did they design cards in this cycle that either means that things go off the list or things go on the list? I would say that in general, because it's so hard to play this now that there's 2 roles, it's very complicated to assess where the restricted list will lie when each clan has 2 roles, as well as trying to assess it further. I would say Feast or Famine should go in there. Like I just think that province shouldn't be printed. That should be on there. I think Hawk Tattoo should be errated. I think it's a lot cleaner.
Rotted to what?
To only target your own guys.
If you just make it your own character, and then everyone can.
No, you're breaking a bit.
Yeah.
Well, I think that Mountains Anvil Castle should be a good addition to the restricted list.
Restricted.
'Cause
I think-
fuck 'em.
I think, look, in seriousness, I think Crab could do with some love. I think either Iron Mine or Pathfinders. I'd like for Crab to have a way to run Pathfinder's Blade with their new Seeker thing. Let's get something out of Seeker of Earth.
Yeah. I would
But they've
prefer
got
to
so
see-
much competition.
I would prefer to see Iron Mine come off the restricted list than Pathfinders. I mean, they're both very, very strong cards.
Then you're enabling the charge Iron Mine shenanigans
I've-
Yeah.
today. Like
They can already
that-
do that. Like,
That's tough.
I've always said that Reprieve should have been the card rather than Iron Mine on the list anyway. Because
yeah,
that
I
card.
agree.
So I would like to see Iron Mine come off, a Reprieve go on, and Feast or
Sorry.
Famine hit the restricted list as well.
Sorry, did I cut out?
Yeah.
We got
that's
the
all right.
gist of your point.
We got
Yeah,
it.
sorry.
We
Yeah.
moved on
Okay.
to Crab.
Cool. What did you say, Bert? Sorry, just so I understand. What we were
Just-
about.
I was just saying that I would like to see Reprieve go on the list and Iron Mine come off. And then,
Yeah.
there's
I'd
some
like-
other tinkering, but I think it's mainly good. I think the restricted list is mainly good.
I'd like
overall.
Pathfinders off it as well. Once the Dragon Roll leaves after Worlds, I'd really like Pathfinders to come off the list. Just because I would like that card to be playable. At a
I think
crowd.
that card's broken. I don't think that effect should be on a 0-cost 1 influence card. I think it's completely fucking broken.
Yeah, non-restricted card as well. 0 cost, non-restricted, 1
Yeah,
influence.
But you can errata this is what I don't understand about the design team is if you print influence costs, why not try and mess around with the influence? Like why not push?
G have a long-standing policy that they don't errata cards because people want people to be able to buy the game and play with the game that they bought rather than have to consult some website somewhere and look at what their cards actually do.
Yeah,
Which is
but I mean that's fair, but like I don't know, Netrunner's got a massive list long. And more importantly, L5R already has errata on cards. Pit Trap, like I know how Pit Trap works because of the rules reference guide.
Errata is the equivalent of patching it like in a video game, but it's inelegant because you've got physical cards that don't do what they say they do. So I think the restricted list is overall the better solution. None of them are perfect though, but yeah. Anyway,
I agree. I agree it's the better solution. I'm just saying, like, maybe there's room for that as well in the future. But you're probably right. It's probably not the most elegant way to go about it.
All right. So I think we've... All right. Quick last run. Any other potential additions? We've talked about Hawk, Tat. Any other cards that we see as problematic?
It's Maze of Illusion. Maze of Illusion. Not because it's a good card, just because it's a problematic card that heads the design strategy in a really... Like having any situation where you're coin flipping, which is essentially what that card does, for what can potentially be an enormous swing.
Yep.
Yeah.
A really bad design philosophy.
That doesn't really...
I also think Shameful Display could probably go on it.
Yeah.
I'm sick of that fucking card. It's such a swing card.
I wouldn't have a problem with that. I'm just got another question here. Oh, hold on. Here we go. This is...
In your years of experience of sleeving and double sleeving cards, I was wondering of the personal opinion that you have...
we can't hear this, Ben. If you're playing.
I don't know what's happening.
All right, hold on. Give me a sec. Let's try this once more.
And then whether you sleeve at the top or the bottom for your double sleeve.
Is there a
You just sack your
multi-media
aim
question?
And also...
Is there a multi...
We use some very low tech.
question?
All right,
I have a question, Ben. Do you have a video question for a podcast? Was that what you were going to try and do?
No, it was an audio question from Hugh, but I'll just tell you the text. He recorded it, but it seems like the quality of the audio wasn't good enough. He's looking at for some help on sleeving cards, and he was wondering when you're sleeving cards, what is the optimal fingernail length? And if you got any tips in sleeving both normal cards and the double matted cards, and does the fingernail length alter between either card sleeve type?
Well, he's missing the secret recipe, mate. He's missing the salt that you sprinkle into your deck, but like into your card sleeves, just so it's pre-salted before you start losing games. So you just add a dash of table salt into your card sleeves, and you're good as gold to go. The fingernail length is irrelevant. I think I'd just say if you've got long nails, then maybe I don't want to sit opposite you and play a game. Because it's probably the nails probably unless you're a female. But if you're a guy and your nails are quite long, I'm probably not going to want to play you.
Start with basic hygiene before card sleeves.
That is just sexist, Glenn.
Hey, well, I just think it's important to look after your nails. And so if you have the more than optimal finger length for sleeving cards...
Optimal finger length? What the fuck are we talking about?
Well, as local player Hugh would know, I think he should probably focus more on adding more spyglasses to his unicorn decks and less about the fingernail length to each card.
Leaving the
Thanks for the question, Hugh. Thanks for the question.
I reckon that was a comprehensive answer. Let's keep it rolling.
All right.
Is there any L5R questions here on this podcast?
Yes.
Or do we have the Star Wars Destiny question coming up?
Okay, we'll do the Destiny one now. So Leon,
all right. Let's get all these other questions out. It's like a Reddit AMA. Ask me about L5R. What do you think about Star Wars Destiny right now? Yeah, keep going.
Leonardo says, I'm building a Star Wars Destiny deck for a casual tournament. Which card from the Elemental Cycle would work well against Mill, as in M-I-L-L? I'm thinking Mirror's Gaze. I think you're the only person who plays Star Wars Destiny, Glenn.
Yeah, so I already answered this question in the comments if people are interested. But I was actually thinking about why don't you just join them, mate? There's a few Mill decks out there in L5R that you can also have fun with. And you can put Star Wars Destiny to the side just for a bit and join us in this game. I think you could play the Scorpion Mill deck with Heartless Intimidator, which we talked about earlier, or you have the choice of running Jay Kristoff special, the Spicy Special, as I've lost too many times. You can run the Lighthouse. So you can be, this Phoenix dude just on an island with 3 giant lighthouses. All you're doing is your opponent's deck each turn. You're like, oh, you just turned, don't worry. That's going to the bottom of your deck, friend. Oh,
Salt! The fucking salt!
Man, this happened. That happened a month ago. You are still super dark about it.
He has a plot.
And then you can add in some infiltrates and be like, oh, you know what? I actually want to play this card as my own. Or, oh, actually, that card's actually quite good too. I'm going to mill it as well. Like, there's all these ways you can mill your opponent without rolling any dice, mate. But if you really want to roll some dice, as Jay said earlier, put Maze of Illusion in your deck. Bring your trusty D6 to the table and roll some dice. You'll get disqualified by the TO because you're not allowed to bring dice to an L5R tournament. But
all right, so that's enough of that one. Two more
L5R questions. Do we have L5R questions?
We have an L5R question. This one's from Mind's Desire. Good old Anil. He said, recent Gen Con winner Anil. He said, now that the Sever the Clan has finally been released, do you think that the meta will change? Does Unicorn present any challenges or angles of attack that give the quote-unquote top clans problems?
Yeah, I think the new Stronghold gives a lot of potential problems. If your deck is relying on Voltroning up, notice how I switched into my serious voice because this is actually an L5R question. I think there's great potential, as we've seen with the Lion deck, that can make top 4 at Origins. That these abilities to have an extra military conflict in military-focused clans offers some quite strong lines of play that you otherwise wouldn't see. I haven't tested extensively, so maybe a few of you guys can comment on it. But in my limited play testing, the new Stronghold has enabled what already I thought was tier 1.5, tier 2 decks to kind of get up there a bit into the competitive meta.
I'm just really glad that they're finally there, at least tier 1.5-ish at worst, I think. And I love, so they got a lot of juice, like cards like the Ashir Tome Encampment and some of the new Dynasty characters are pretty strong. As for whether they definitely present a unique challenge for the top clans because movement effects are just inherently strong. But whether or not that actually is going to give them problems in cuts at tournaments, I'm not sure yet.
Yeah, I think the new province that Unicorn run is something that others aren't doing. Flip something, all those cards that say rally to the cause, when you flip it. So I've had a player have it under his box. The province flips and he'll talisman you into it, flip rally, and it's like an extra captive audience. Or if they wait until you got 3 or 4 people in, and then they could flip if they were running Night Raid, for example, make you drop a bunch of cards. Like that little specific tech that no one else has, I think is quite strong as well.
That card's pretty good.
Nathan, you are a man after my own heart. You can ask Ben and Jay, I've been doing that for a while now. Flipping Night Raid when they kind of overcommit is actually quite strong. That card only gets better with the more when revealed provinces they print. And you can flip their resto, so you dump all your cards into your defense, and you flip the dragon player's resto once you're down to 4, and it's quite a strong effect as well, I feel.
It's a super good province.
Their alternate role is Keeper of Fire, right? So now they can do the Force of the River, Shahai, plus Unleash the Djinn as a combo to get 4. Yeah, it's a lot of auto loss, but it could be cool. We'll see how it goes.
I think it's useful against those Voltrons. Just being able to set. If you got more characters in the conflict, you kind of win. Right.
Okay. I also noticed a couple of unicorns sneaking Endless Plains back into the row as well. That kind of fell out of vogue for a while, but recently on Chikudoku, pulled into a few by mistake because you just don't expect to see the card anymore. It kind of fell out of fashion. So that could be.
Did you lose any major? Did you take any heavy damage from it?
A couple of times, yeah. Because like I say, you just don't expect to see it anymore. So yeah.
It's kind of like getting Sakune Where the Crab turn 1.
You need yourself a Pathfinder's Blade. That's what you need. Gotta get it off that list.
Nah, if you're Bert, you never that card's never seen play, mate. The card's always on the list.
Yeah, fuck that card. The card shouldn't have been printed.
It's underpowered, just like policy debate.
Okay. We have
You're making enemies fast here, mate.
All right. We had a final question to wrap up the pod, which I quite like. This one's from Edwin Pierce. G'day, Edwin. So he said, "Hello, Rollers. What card is your spirit animal?" All right. We'll start with Nathan. What's your spirit animal?
I'm gonna say the reclusive Zoccogen.
Yeah. Why is that? Is that because you live in Perth?
Just tucked away in a little cave in my little corner now, and then pops out, causes a bit of havoc, and fucks off again in this hole.
Glenn?
What did I say last time? I feel like my spirit animal is just going to shift each time. I feel like I'm that bird at the moment.
The kangaroo?
You know, not really knowing what's. Yeah, I'm not really knowing what's going on. I'm just flapping my wings and hoping for the best. Seeing where we go.
Birdie?
Well, last time I said Noble Sacrifice. That was my favorite card. But as for my spirit animal, I think it's probably Jade Tetsubo. I love the idea of just knocking someone's life force out of them with that one fell swoop. And it's got sick art, so Jade Tetsubo for me.
You just give an inanimate object an animalistic quality, mate.
Yes. Yeah, man.
All right.
I love anthropomorphizing inanimate objects, bro.
Sure.
Right. How about you, Jay? Have you got... Is it policy debate? Is that your spiritual?
I do love it and hate that card in your comments. No, I will say guest of honor just because she makes you fucking furious, dude. It's like Ben sitting there thinking, why am I even in the building right now?
That's
so yeah,
what do I
no card makes you quite as angry as her.
I think it's time for another JD when guest of honor comes out.
That's it.
My spirit animal.
Simcof, spirit animal.
You've oh yes, absolutely. Is what I want to channel and like use as my totem is spreading the disease. I think it's all that's good about card design and L5R. I love the idea that like you're just losing a bunch of honor and you're just gonna channel the was it the Mayho, the Shadowlands, the Taint, and spread it all over your opponents. Just spread it over your opponents. Just spew it.
Spread the taint on your opponent.
Dude, that was the best answer.
The disease. Yes. That's what I like. I enjoy it. All right. With that, any final thoughts? Any advice to rookies, to new players?
Yeah.
Life
So
advice?
if you sit down to play L5R and your opponent's playing Star Wars Destiny, it's either going to be me or Leon. So just watch out for that. Happy in the next week. It'll be me on Leon sitting opposite to you, and I'll pull out my dice, and you'll pull out Maze of Illusion, and we'll have a great time.
Actually, Bert, Toreadory, I do have one thing. Can you just plug the latest Discord stuff? What's the state of the Aussie-French battle? What's going on with other stuff?
Yeah, so we have a tentative start date for that. So we're having our top 8 playoff against the French top 8. That's going to start early September. It's probably first week of September, so next couple of weeks. And that's going to hopefully be streamed in French and English. That should be a lot of fun. And then I think we will do sign-ups for the next Australian League soon as well. So stay tuned for that.
There's great players on both sides of that top 8. So that should be really something everyone should get around and watch on Jigoku when you can.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. We've been the Hidden City Rollers, and you've been people who play children's card games. Bye-bye.